So basically, this might be a short one, or maybe I'm not going to do one, I don't know. But maybe like don't let them scare you out of your life. So basically, um, I put together a video that I put on YouTube and then I privated last night, and it was a video where I basically kind of go down a lot of the evidence, and it's like it basically I was saying like, well, it seems like not only is it sort of like a town thing, but it seems like maybe a worldwide thing, or certainly like a large scale thing. And I was drinking, not a huge amount, but a little bit. And oh, you were drinking, like there's such a negative connotation there. I'm not saying that nothing bad ever happens when you drink, but like I think it's like a lot of things, people point to drinking and give it a negative connotation, beyond the actual facts of the situation. And so it's just an easy way for people to like, put a blame on you. It's like, oh, you've been doing this. Like whenever somebody takes a tone with what they say, I mean, maybe not, but a lot of the times, maybe if somebody takes a tone with what they say, it might be them putting something extra on something, especially if they take a tone when what you did wasn't like hurting anybody else, or even you potentially, but whatever, because Jesus did drink in the Bible. And I've heard people say like, well, it's because water wasn't good back then. Basically, the cleanest thing they could drink was wine because they knew it was clean, because it was, I don't know, because it burned off the bacteria because of the alcohol, whatever. But then again, Jesus' first miracle was, I think his first public miracle was doing, or an early one was filling up all the, turning the water into wine, and that's, obviously that's a big, sort of, it's a big well-known thing that they said that Jesus did, but at the same time, it's also like he made a lot of wine for the wedding party. Like it was a lot of wine, and so that seems to go against the idea that just drinking is always bad. It's like, well, then why would the Son of God, or why would God be providing a lot of wine for a wedding party? You might say, well, it was because it was a celebration. It's like, okay, well, if there's a celebration, then in that case, I guess drinking was okay. But in any case, this was sort of a celebration as well, because it was sort of a celebration of my life, and I kind of got to the point where it's like, I wrote down, why fucking worry about it? Like, if I'm okay, and I seem to be famous, and it seems to be a louche farm, then why worry about anything, basically? Because basically it's, Eminem says, like, he feels like he's in a zoo, and everyone's looking at you or something, and you look at the alternate cover to Recovery, and it's him like in a glass house or whatever, and that's kind of what it feels like for me. And to the extent that it seems like certain huge or big YouTubers and other like bigger people might be indeed watching me, along with a lot of other people in the town, like a lot of people in the town and stuff, it seems like it's kind of, it feels like I'm kind of an animal being abused. But what I'm really talking about here is that so of course or not, I wasn't thinking, right? I wasn't as aware of what I was doing, and like I think I just didn't have the thought. I don't think it was like, oh, I was like, oh, screw it, like whatever. Like I didn't have the thought. I don't think I thought of it like a, oh, put the stuff put your food in the food bag. Food bag, that sounds so attractive, right? But there you go. Put your food in the food bag, and then bring that to the room that you're gonna go to sleep in, and then put the thing on the door, and you got the things on the windows, and so then set up the camera and do what you usually do, and it'll be fine. But instead I didn't do that, and bring in your computer and etc. Instead I didn't do that, and well, guess what happened? See, I don't know if it's hacking, because I think there has been hacking that's gone on like remotely. In fact, I've seen it happen. Like before my eyes. I was editing the Play Racing Games video, and I think I put this into one of the videos, but I got a screenshot of it being open. But nevertheless, by itself, Exercises in Futility, maybe Exercises in Futility 6, whichever song it is from the album Exercises in Futility by Magua, that opened up by itself in VLC, which is something that I don't use to listen to music generally. I use VLC for, if something, basically to play like a file type that other things aren't playing as easily. For example, one of my security cameras, it seems to have a file type, and I realized, wait a second, I don't have to convert these and go through all the time to do that. I can just play them as they are through VLC. It's a little less convenient, but in various ways, but nevertheless it works. But so I don't use VLC though generally to listen to music. Like I don't know if I've ever thought like I'm going to use VLC to listen to music. Like why? It doesn't add anything to it. It's all on iTunes, or generally it's on iTunes. So instead but nevertheless, Exercises in Futility opened up by itself seemingly, and through a program where I don't even know. I'm sure I could figure it out pretty quickly, and I think maybe I've done it before, but there would be probably a few extra steps to open music in VLC, because it's not like you open VLC and you got your whole iTunes library like there right in front of you. It's like you'd probably go to a folder or something, and then right click and open with and VLC or something, or maybe I don't know. And indeed, it seemed like it even set itself up as like VLC. I don't know. Like it seemed like it set itself up as like, okay, the Exercise in Futility, there was like now a tab for it or something. Whatever. In any case, it opened up by itself while I was making a YouTube video, Play Racing Games, and it's so funny because it's like. Because like I was following intuition, and it felt like, well, it might have been intuition, might have been manipulation, and that video came out okay, but like that's definitely like not as polished as some of the videos I've made since then, etc. But I was sort of getting my grounding and sort of like getting into gear. Funny for a racing game video. And anyway, so that thing opened up seemingly by itself, like literally in front of me. Like it wasn't somebody necessarily on the computer. It opened up by itself. So it seemed to be remotely somebody was like hacking into my computer and manipulating it. So I'm not sure what happened last night, but basically like I left my computer in the other room, I left my food and stuff in the other room, and normal people in what would seem to be normal situations, they don't worry about it. Like, oh, I closed the thing of coffee and I had the food sealed, but I just happened to leave it in another room, and I didn't seal it, tie it up in a bag, and then put a fucking security camera on it, and then look like I'm fucking, or act like I'm fucking Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory, like putting something on the doorknob so that it'll fall off and make a loud sound if somebody opens the door in the middle of the night. Maybe anyway. Hopefully it would. And then like basically it's like, oh no, wow, Matt, you're so irresponsible. You left food in the other room like a normal person. Nevertheless, I did, and in my case, it actually is like it's not as responsible to potentially protecting my food from home invaders and stuff that might be coming in or whatever. Because I've seen like weird shit, like stuff will be misplaced or displaced or whatever in a room, or like there's suddenly a peanut butter on the fucking windowsill or what looks like it, who knows, and I get video footage of that, etc. And it's like, it seems like people break in, it seems like people break in sometimes, and it's like, all right, well, I guess that's what I'm dealing with. It seems like people break in sometimes. And so last night, I basically made this video talking about just this kind of thing, and it's like, what? Like, why would I worry about anything? Why would I push myself to the bone and be like, I'm gonna be like, I'm sort of restarting this because I don't know. Sometimes the audio cuts out, and I think it might be like when it goes to like the standby screen, or maybe when the standby screen goes to the dark screen, or even if I press the sleep button or whatever, wake up button. Lock, whatever it is. But in any case, here, basically it's like, okay, so what? Am I gonna be the most responsible cow on the farm where they're raping me and then getting milk from me? It's like, that's kind of bullshit. At least in terms of like feeling like I'm indebted to do something like that. If I'm being treated like an animal and people are home invading and doing a whole range of crimes to me that I don't think I've ever done most of these crimes to anybody else in my life, but then it's just like these are done to me just consistently, like the computer hacking, all sorts of stuff. And it's, probably some theft as well, although it seems like they stop short of doing things where like they're gonna usually have something that you can point to and that they'd go to jail for. It's like they'd go to, believe you me, if this were proven in a courtroom, they'd be, all sorts of people would be seemingly going to jail for all sorts of things that have been done to me. But often they don't like damage things. They did, as I said in one of the videos, they damaged my camera. That's something. Or they seem to. And then, etc. But it's like basically, I've been the victim of a lot of crimes. It seems like I've been the victim of a lot of crimes, as I've talked about, given that I was sort of followed around by cops, at least on one walk, but like it seemed like for a little while, but it was certainly one walk, and it seemed like, some of the cops that seemed to be sort of buzzing around me, like I saw one of them walking out of his car to go like knock on somebody's fucking door. It's like, I don't know, the way they talk about it, like in TI circles and stuff, they talk about how the cops will often like recruit other people in the community. And then I think something I listened to recently, I'm not sure if it was the Alan Watt interview on Road to Freedom, whatever it was though, it's like, I think it might have been. It was like, well, basically like, oh, we know that, government basically uses private industries and stuff and like front organizations like universities and stuff to do what they'd like to do or to do what they're doing, but so they would appear to have rules and standards. And so, I think that might go with the so-called community policing as well, where perhaps the police will, gather people in the community to terrorize other people in the community and do crimes against them, where if it was a cop doing this, or at least in his fucking suit, then he's probably going to look really bad. But if it's just somebody invading your house and the cops know about it or even maybe asked for it to happen, I'm not saying that they did, but I am saying that as I've said, I am saying I told a cop about the Carriage Inn in South Kingstown or North Kingstown, Rhode Island, tampering with my food, and that I had evidence. And then his response was to say like, oh, did you go back there? Did you go back there since then? And he said it in sort of a tone where it sounded like he was basically trying to accuse me or trying to make it sound like I was going to go do something bad or something. It's like, wait a second, are we skipping over them tampering with my food? And I've talked about that before, but it's just, it's helpful to throw these put these details in, not just throw them in, but to have these details here when I'm talking about this, to sort of fill it out in case somebody is listening to like this but hasn't listened to the other stuff, or just in the sense of making a good tidy package with it and saying, no, like when there's a detail to support X, then I'm going to put in that detail. It's like a math problem, right? But in any case, so yeah, it's like, it seems like the police are very sort of don't care about what happens to me, or at least one of them didn't seem like he cared about what happened to me. And indeed, it seems like, based on what I've seen, it seems like maybe they've potentially, I'm not saying they did, I'm saying potentially it seems like a possibility that there was some kind of like interaction between them and the community members who now seem to be terrorizing me.
That together we could take you out, and Gotham would be ours.
Over my dead body.
And I do say terrorizing, and I do say committing crimes against me, actually. And I do note that these crimes are being committed against me, and I haven't had any help from the people who are supposedly paid to. It's like, well, Matt, have you been asking them for help? Well, no, of course not. I was because it's just basically, even if they had no idea of it and had nothing to do with it, I'm not saying that they do have an idea or they have anything to do with it. But even if they didn't, or if they didn't, that, it's still a bunch of stuff where it seems like it's so little connecting anybody to it, any specific person to it, or seemingly so little connecting like what people seem to be doing to a pattern. I mean, I could, and I have put together a lot of visual evidence to show like bizarre patterns, but a lot of it is just sort of bizarre, or it does come off as just sort of bizarre patterns rather than what it really is, which is terrorizing and harassment. and coordinated, seemingly, community terrorizing and harassment. But nevertheless, so you talk to, what, you're going to go talk to a cop about that? In fact, because the cops are harassing me in this case, because I was gathering, I was basically like, oh, you know what, this seems like this is going on. And then a cop pulled me over, or I was walking, and then another cop, by the way, it was in an out-of-the-way area. I wonder if they did that intentionally. Waited until I walked over there. I don't know. Maybe that's just when they got to me. But basically, it was sort of an out-of-the-way road where, there were, literally no houses around that people lived in, and it kind of forest, trees on one side, and sort of kind of a rise on the other. And there was some kind of house down there, but then some kind of business back there. But it was sort of like an area where nobody was at. It's if they were trying to do something in a secretive way, then they picked a good area for it. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure that was the case. But in any case, one car pulled up. Then what do you know? Another car pulled up, and another person gets out. And they're both kind of harassing me, and so I did tell him about, because he's like, well, we got a call that you were taking video around the neighborhood, or going around with a camera. He's like, do you have a camera? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, can I see it? And it's like, so, and he's like, you're not in trouble, and he was like, were you going on anyone's property? And I was like, no. And he's like, all right, well, yeah, as long as you're doing it from the street, there's, you're not in trouble, there's nothing illegal there. But so basically they were harassing me, and then so as part of talking about what I was actually doing, I told them, yeah, it seems like people have been kind of harassing me around the neighborhood, and that's the context in which I told them about the food tampering as well. And how not only that did the food get tampered with, but as I've said many times now, I called it. You can see the fucking text where I say, could we go to somewhere farther away, because I think that people around here don't like me, and I think they're going to mess with my food, or I'm probably going to feel worried about it. And then lo and behold, they did mess with my food at a place that was at least somewhat significantly farther away. And so it all really, it's like, oh yeah, well, that all goes together. It does all go together. You know what goes together? Stuff that is consistent in a fucking context. If something's consistent in a context, then it goes together. That's called making a case. But it's not just making a case. That's just called giving you details that seem to support what I'm talking about here.
We need to leave.
The master of understatement as ever.
But in any case, to go back to it, don't let them scare you out of your life. Don't. Really, don't. To go back to it, it's like, look, so basically, to go back to it, because I have been maybe repetitive here, but, every time I talk about this, it seems like such an outlandish situation, or it seems like it might be perceived as such, that it's like, unfortunately, the victim of crimes, or of community harassment, or of coordination, and blah blah blah, and of police not protecting them in the way that they're supposed to, and blah blah blah. The victim of crimes seems to have a huge fucking burden of proof on them, or seems to have a big burden in terms of what people are going to listen to them. And if you're conscientious or consistent, then if you care about what's true, then generally. True, it helps to have stuff that you're going to be talking about to support it. So, I support it, and so I don't support this happening to me. I support it not with that or for that. But what I will say is it basically, hold on. Basically, don't let them scare you out of your life, because to get back to the recent thing. This fucking, so I go to sleep last night, and it's okay, whatever, I go to sleep. I was, being a little more irresponsible than usual. I bought a black metal album for $8.99 on iTunes, and then I went on Amazon and I bought a book, and then thank goodness this morning I woke up and I was like, you know what, I better fucking cancel that book. I don't need that book. It's a book that would have been nice, right? But it was around $20 or something. It's all right, no, I don't need it. I don't really have a lot of money to be buying a bunch of books right now and stuff, so I'll cancel that. I'm not going to cancel the album on iTunes. I already started listening to it, and it felt like that was sort of a clean buy even then it felt like okay, like that was a fine buy. But so I went and tried to cancel it on Amazon, and then actually it was like from a separate seller, and it was like, oh crap. But I got the confirmation they did cancel it, so thank goodness. So I wasn't being incredibly irresponsible, but and I was eating a little more of my food than maybe would be good too. So more money stuff in general, but that's fine. I mean, it's not necessarily great, but I was let's just say I was being a little more irresponsible than I could have been. But then, so I went to sleep. But here's the thing. Then later on, I realized, like, I opened iTunes maybe for the first time of the day. I think it was for the first time of the day, and I saw that, lo and behold, just like has happened in the past, something was open that I don't remember opening. It's like, oh well, Matt, you were drinking. How would you not remember? It's like, no, you know what? It's something open that I don't remember opening that I think I didn't open, that seemed to have sort of a cheeky wink at what I was talking about. And so I was talking about last night, like, one of the things I was talking about was Steely Dan and Metallica. Like, oh, they played a bunch of Steely Dan and Metallica. I've talked about this, but basically, like, that was one of the seeming connections to my life, or references that people kind of played around with in sort of maybe a stalking context in a certain situation. So lo and behold, though, I open iTunes and it's Aja by Steely Dan. That's open. I wasn't listening to Aja. It doesn't show that I was listening to it last night. In fact, it was still on the album that I was listening to, the one that I fucking bought. I was listening to metal. I wasn't listening to fucking Steely Dan last night. Not that I don't like Steely Dan. But I like Aja. But here's the thing: I was talking about it in a stalking context, and then suddenly it's open on my iTunes. I mean, it's fucking terrifying stuff. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I know how this goes. And so I was like, I better check my YouTube watch history. Let's see what's on my YouTube watch history that I might not recognize as something that I did. And lo and behold, we've got a bunch. We've got a fucking bunch. So what was I talking about? Well, part of what I was talking about was Scientology. And I was like, you know what? Like, I like the Scientology stuff. I think this is helpful stuff. And so I was looking at the Scientology book. And in fact, I was having a little kind of, discussion with the fucking surveillance people, I suppose, but whatever. Like, I was basically like, why am I because I was, even after making that video and saying, like, what's the point of like doing, feeling like I've got to be doing a really good job as a person when I seem to be in a situation where it's like either supernaturally or basically it seems like I am some kind of treated like an animal in a zoo, and people are watching me and abusing me and doing horrific crimes against me that they'd be going to jail for years for, right? If it were proven, and if the government protected people, but protected all people. Hold on. But whatever, I'm no fan of the government anyway. It's a monopoly on force, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just saying it's sort of a funny, ironic context. But here you go. So I was about to take a bath, and I was like, oh yeah, well, you know what? Like, what book would I like to read in the bath? But I was thinking of it more in terms of like, what book should I read in the bath, or like to stay on my spiritual track, or like whatever, to stay heading towards enlightenment or whatever, to to do the thing that I'm supposed to do, or to do, like, basically to follow the intuition. What book am I supposed to read? And so like I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. I was like, I'd like to read that, because I was like, I was going back and forth, and it's like, you know what? No, I'd like to read the fucking Scientology book. And so I literally, like, I picked up the book, and I think I might have, like, waved it in the air as if to, like, say, like, anybody who's literally watching me on some kind of secret camera or something, it's like, oh, Matt, that sounds crazy. Did you listen to the earlier stuff I said? Okay. Anyway, anybody who's secretly watching me, and you're about to hear something more, right? Anybody who may, like, as if to say, anybody who's secretly watching me or listening to me, like, fuck it, I sort of, like, prominently, or conspicuously grab the Scientology book, and it's like, I'm going to read this one. You know what? I'd like to read this one. This is the one I'd actually like to read. And so I took that, and then I also took Stephen King Desperation, and, like, read a little of both in the bath. And okay, so then I brought him back to the room, and then eventually I went to sleep, etc. It's like, okay, fine. So I get up the next morning, and I'm looking at my YouTube watch history, search history, or watch history, and what do you know? There are like a fucking ton of Scientology videos, just a ton of fucking Scientology videos. After the after the videos that I did watch last night, that I did remember watching, and I did indeed watch, there were a ton of Scientology videos. It's like, well, Matt, you were already thinking about Scientology. Who's to say you didn't black out or something and watch all those? It's like, again, did you listen to what I was saying earlier? This is exactly what they do. They do, right? Or you have multiple personalities. It might just be you doing it. It's like, look, you can say whatever you want. I'm bringing up these possible objections because I think that's possibly how people who are harassing you and terrorizing you might engineer it. And people have talked about it all over the place with the TI context. And you can look at Ted Gunderson, FBI for fucking decades, and like fucking Julianne McKinney worked in the government. They talk about this stuff too. They talk about it or like the guy who was in Silent Holocaust 1 on Rumble, the interview at least presented as that in a video, who worked for SIS and talked about this kind of shit going on and how it's done so that it's plausibly deniable, or it's done to be plausibly deniable. You can go watch if this helps, if this has more credibility for you, you can go watch the video of the black kid being interviewed outside Santa Clara or San Jose or something, was it California, or I don't know, some place over there. There's a black kid being interviewed on a fucking bench by a guy who seemed to be a targeted individual based on how he was talking, and this kid's like, oh yeah, he's like, yeah, like he either was a gang stalker or a stalker, or like he was basically offered it. It's sort of unclear whether he did it. It seemed like he kind of did it. They said former gang stalker in the video title, but it's this kid. It's a real fucking kid. He was like 21 years old or something, young guy. He's sitting on the bench and he's talking about like, yeah, well, you know what? They pay us with gift cards, like, and they give you gift cards for places where you can buy like food and clothes, and like they give you gift cards like Walmart. I don't know if he mentioned Walmart. Walmart's sort of a classic gift card that they talk about for this context. But he's like, they give you gift cards, and it's gift cards that you want, like $100 gift cards, like these places, and that's how they pay you, or like they might, XYZ. And he said like they literally had a fucking seminar in fucking City Hall about how to fucking stalk people. And he said like they make you sign an NDA because if something were to happen to somebody, like say somebody were to K themselves or something, and then somebody were to blame it on you because you were stalking them, and they somehow found out about it and linked it to you, well, you basically like you signed a paper, I don't know, NDA or what, but you signed a paper that said it was your fault, that it was your responsibility, that it wasn't the people that hired you to do it. And if this kid wasn't lying, then it seems like that would be well, clearly if he wasn't lying, then clearly they would have, they're doing this shit out of City Hall and shit, and they have fucking seminars. And I gotta tell you, from my own experience, it seems like a shitload of fucking people, are doing this. Like, it's not just like a few people, it's like a ton of fucking people. It's like most of the houses in the fucking neighborhood having this shit going on, with like, cars parking on the grass here and there, and just like basically like these recurring patterns. I've talked about that elsewhere, or I will talk about it elsewhere depending on when something goes up, but like, basically like these recurring patterns of behavior that seem to be associated with this. It's like these bizarre conspicuous things that weren't happening, and suddenly they're happening, and suddenly they're happening at more houses, and then they're happening at this house, and it wasn't happening there, but now it's happening there, and then this house and that house, and then you wait a couple days, and then there's another house doing it that wasn't doing it, and it's like, it's all sorts of shit where it's like, again, it's plausibly deniable, but it's conspicuous. And so it's like, but the point being here that it seems like a shitload of people are doing it, not to mention all the people sitting in fucking cars, and like, I don't even want to get into the details, because each time I bring up a detail of how it might happen, then it's like, well, Matt, have you supported it? Have you talked about, it's like, well, like I'd like to do a complete presentation every time anyway, and sort of like have what I say sort of support itself. But then B, it's like, it just brings up so many more things for people to just say like, well, that sounds ridiculous. It's like, well, if you've listened to this stuff this far, and I think I've made a pretty good case for it, and it doesn't sound ridiculous, then why does me bringing up a new detail make it sound more ridiculous? Yes, it might seem like an absurd thing, but in any case, what I'm saying is, it seems like a shitload of people in the community are doing it, and with the idea that like, or with the bizarre shit I saw with the cops, it seems like potentially like they were. I'm not saying they were. I'm saying it seems like that seems to be a possible thing, that they were recruiting them to do it. And in any case, Especially if that and I'll say his race again, not because I think it matters, but because I think a lot of people hearing this might be engineered and programmed to believe someone of a certain race over someone of another race. So that black kid, and by the way, it was a black guy talking to him, from the sounds of it anyway. He was if what he was saying was true, then it would seem like that is the modus operandi, that it is actually literally local government that is doing this. It's not just private stuff. It's literally the government itself. And of course, it's like, paying in gift cards and stuff. That would make sense because that's probably much less of a fucking paper trail for them. But in any case, so to go back to it though, I was reading that, or I took that Scientology book into the bath. Lo and behold, I go to the fucking YouTube search history, and it's just Scientology video after Scientology video, and like it's like welcome to day 2, and one of them is like we are the giants, and like as with another time, and I got screenshots of the other of another time, and then I got screenshots of this time as well. It seems like a bunch of like titles in the videos where they're sort of like terrifying, horrifying, scary little winks at you. Like it comes short of like one video saying we are watching you, and then another video saying like in the title like you are going down. Like it's basically shit like that. And so maybe I'll put them up like in whatever this audio is going to be going with. But it's like this is terrifying stuff. But here's the thing: don't let them scare you out of your life.